What are you working on with your agents?
Commission.
Let's do it.
This
All
is the
right.
topic.
In what sense? At the listing appointment?
All kinds, actually. Over the phone. What's your commission? You know, the other agent's giving us a better deal. Blah blah blah. The usual. So
All right.
yeah. You want to be the agent, or I'll be the agent?
I'll be the agent.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, Sean. I mean, really great presentation, but the commission's too high.
Oh, okay. What did you have in mind, sir?
Well, I mean, I was thinking about like 3.5% or 4, because as you probably know, I mean, I've seen multiple offers on almost every listing that we've seen. So I think it sells itself.
Yeah, okay. I mean, here's the thing though, John. Like if we do a 3% commission and, typically our services with what we offer, do you feel that it's fair of me taking 2.5% on my side?
I mean, sure, but like, maybe just offer less to the buyer's agent.
So let's get into that a little bit. And your property in particular, let's say we're offering out 1% to the other agent. When there's other properties on the market, which we've seen here on Tiara Street, if we're only offering out 1% and another property is offering out 2.5%, we're talking about a substantial difference. So what do you think an agent, yeah, shoot, totally that. What do you think a buyer's going to look at first? Do you think if they're going to have to pay another agent a commission on the property, are they going to be more inclined to look at your property or this other one on Tiara?
So I get that point. So why don't you take less than money? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm seeing commission structures from 3.5 to 4. You're charging 5.5.
So basically you're saying to take 1% on this property?
Whatever. I mean, really, I'm willing to pay 4%.
Yeah.
Get that 3.5 is pretty low. I get it.
So let me ask you this: if I went to 4.5 today, do we have a deal on this?
No, I was thinking about maybe 4, because other agents are offering like 3.5.
Sure. And I mean, is the lowest commission really what's important to you, or is top? Yeah, I'm done. I just woke up. I'm out of it.
Oh, this is good practice. This is good practice, because you probably haven't come across it in a while. Jose, thoughts on this?
I jumped on late. I just heard the last like 15 seconds of it. I'm guessing that it's the commission basically that you guys are going over.
So I'm not willing to pay 6%. I don't know what you guys charge in California mainly, but I said 3.5 to 4% is what the other agents are offering, and then Sean went into it, but couldn't finish.
I would probably ask a question like, I would ask, okay, and obviously the commission is important. Let me ask you this, like, if all agents were charging the same thing, like which agent would you choose?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, you're all seemingly pretty capable. So.
Okay. So in other words, like if all agents were charging the same thing, you're not even sure if I'm the right person. At least that's what I hear you saying. Like you're not sold on what we have to offer.
I mean, your track record is good. I mean, that's why I'm considering even hiring you guys. Just it comes down to just a commission, right?
Okay.
So
would it be safe to say that, like, let's say me and the other agents were charging the same thing? Would it be safe to say that you'd want to work with us if everybody was charging the same thing, or is there a different agent that you feel would that you'd want to work with?
I mean, there's a couple of you guys that are pretty close, to be honest with you, and that's why commission is definitely it's a deciding factor.
Got it. Okay, so it's not even like you have your mind set up. In other words, basically, like you don't have your mind set up. Like if all agents were the same percentage, you don't have your mind set up as to which agent you'd work with.
Not 100%. We're going to be thinking about it over the weekend, getting back to everybody, right? But if the commission is enticing enough, I mean, my wife and I will definitely consider making a faster decision. So
I want to apologize to you, John. I don't think that I've done a good enough job, like showcasing you what we have to offer. So here's what I would propose. If you're okay with it, what I like to do next is go over like our marketing plan of action, like meaning specifically what I'm going to do to help you market and sell your property to help you get top dollar. If you like that, I promise you we'll work out a commission that works out for both of us. Is that okay with you?
sure.
Okay. So, and then I'll start going over the marketing plan of action. So usually like it's very hard to negotiate if you don't have very much leverage. And what I mean by that is that usually it's easier to negotiate if you have something that they want.
Meaning
Like you have leverage, like meaning like would it be easier to negotiate, John, if they actually want the services that you have to offer?
Well, 100%. Yeah.
If they don't want the services that you have to offer and they think that you're just like everybody else, the only thing left to compete on is price, basically,
Yeah.
So the reason I took that approach is if you're not sold on what I have to offer, I'm going to make sure that you understand the services that we have to offer and see if maybe at the end of those services, they're like, oh shit, now I want what Jose has to offer. And if they want what I have to offer, it'll make it easier for me to negotiate a higher price or a higher commission, basically. Because at that point, I didn't feel like usually the response that I get, just so you know, is, well, at this point, well, look, Jose, like if everybody was charging the same thing, I would select you as our agent. And if I don't get that response, it means I haven't done a good enough job in terms of like, this is my son. So what's up, Jose?
What's up, dude?
So it means I haven't done a good enough job in showcasing what we have to offer. So I can go over a couple steps of the marketing plan of action. And if you guys want, I can circle back how I would recircle back to the commission and then take it from there. Or I can just pretend like John said, basically, hey, look, like if all agents were charging the same thing, like we would choose you. I can go over both of those options because those are two different scenarios as well. And I'm okay with either one.
Yeah. Jose, what do you think we should do?
Me?
Yeah.
Or Sean?
Oh, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to show us?
Well, all right. So like, let's say that they say, yes, I'm basically like, if all agents were charging the same thing, Jose, I would choose you. My very next question would be like, why? I want to hear what they're going to say as to why they want to work with me. Well, Jose, we like the fact that you offer the complimentary staging. Or Jose, we like the fact that you've got experience. Or Jose, we like this about you, basically. Okay. So it sounds like if all agents were charging the same thing, you'd want to work with me. At the same time, it sounds like the commission is important. So I wanted to make you a proposition, and I'm not sure if you're open to this. So I know that you said that the other agents were charging you. You said, what did you say the other agents were charging you?
One's 3.5, one's 4.
So one is 3.5 and one is 4. Okay. And knowing obviously, John, that we offer the complimentary home staging, knowing obviously that like with us, it's almost like a guaranteed sale just because of the amount of experience that we have. Like, what do you think would be something that you would feel comfortable that you said, Jose, if you do it for this, I would give you the opportunity?
I mean, if you match the 4, I think it's pretty good to go.
You said 4%, right?
4%, yeah.
Got it. What about this? And I'm not sure if I would be open to doing this. What if I did this? What if I did 5% instead of the 6% that we charge? And then what if we represented the buyer, then I dropped it to 4% in that scenario?
I mean, I think that could be workable. But could you do 4 regardless?
Meaning that, like, if there's another agent,
Yeah.
to do 4%. Oh man, John. And do you want the property staged or not staged?
I mean, I live here, you know. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lowest I would be able to go, John, would be the 5 and the 4%, basically. And that might be a deal breaker for you. And if it is, like, man. So right now we're 1% off, basically, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Let me ask you this: like, how important is it for you and your family to be able to make the move out to Florida and not have any worries about the property selling? Meaning, like, knowing that everything's going to be done the right way, knowing that you guys are going to get top dollar for the property, and knowing that there won't be a situation where you guys are moved and the property's not sold.
How important is it? I mean,
yeah,
it's very important. I mean, that's why we're interviewing 3 agents, right?
Got it. Okay. And then what would happen if, like, for whatever reason, like, the property wasn't sold and you guys were out in Florida?
I mean, I could still move, but I don't want to carry 2 mortgages. We already bought, right? So.
Got it. Okay. And why did you say that you wanted, or let me ask you this, like, the 4% agent, the guy charging you the 4%, like, why would you want to work with me versus them?
Well, I mean, commission is a big consideration, and you know, they don't do staging, but I don't need staging. Like I said, you know, and they're pretty well experienced, good track record, tons of Google reviews as well. You know, so I mean, at the end of the day, it does come down to that, and you know, you have more experience, you sell more homes, but if it's like 1%. It's a consideration for sure for us going to Florida.
What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on keeping it at 5%? And then if for whatever reason I don't net you the price that we're listing the property for, I'll include a clause in there that you have the ability to renegotiate the contract if I'm unable to net you the amount that you want. This way, like, at least it gives me the opportunity to see, hey, look, this is what I can get you for the property. And if I'm unable to get you that, then at that point we can revisit this conversation. And this way you get the guy with the most sales here in Ventura County. You get the guy that is basically, like, sold hundreds of properties in your neighborhood. And you get the guy that you're not going to have to worry about, like, the property selling or not selling whatsoever.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think the property kind of sells itself, but I'll tell you what, like, why do we do this? 4.5 and 4. 4 if you double, and 4.5 if there's no other agent.
At that point, you just have to make a business decision, John. So it's not like it's going to come down to a business decision at that point. So what you can do at that point is you can either, like, go over track record and call out the bluff about the other agent, like, meaning, like, look up their Zillow profile. You can either go over the plan of action, or you can basically say, okay, great, if I did it for that percentage, do we have a deal, basically? So if I were to go into the track record, it would likely be something like this. And And obviously, like, if I were to go into the track record, but at that point, it's kind of like just track record, plan of action, or you have to make a business decision as to what you want, basically.
Yeah.
Hey, Jose, if you don't want
Yes.
those, let me know.
Now, I actually, I'll take all of them, bro. Like, meaning, like, I don't discriminate. I feel like they all average out to, like, I've had agents that are like, oh, like, I would never do it for less than 6%, yet they make $50,000 a year versus $2 million a year, you know? So it's like, I don't look at I look at the percentage, but I look more or less at the income that is associated with the percentage. And if
Yeah.
I'm happy with the income that's associated with the percentage, I'm good with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a business decision at that point. The other one that I heard is, the other agent said they would do it for 4% or 3.5%. Well, how fast did they actually agree to the 3.5% or the 4%? Yeah. Right. And if I were acting as your agent, would you want me to be that? If a buyer came through your house and they want to negotiate on the price of your home, how strong would I be defending you and the equity that you have hard earned over the years? Right.
So I think and I know that one, and that's the one that Aaron says. So it goes something like this, just for the listeners. It'll be like, okay, John, and let me ask you this: like, how long was it before that agent like cut their commission to 4%?
Pretty quick. I mean, he was pretty good to go with 4% right away.
Got it. Okay, so one of the reasons, John, why you're going to hire a real estate agent is really to negotiate on your behalf. And the reality is, whether we like to admit it or not, whoever you end up choosing to help you market and sell your property, they're going to be having conversations as it relates to price with you not being present. Meaning other agents are going to ask them, hey, could I submit at X instead of Y? Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, like, if that agent was very quick to drop their very own price or their very own commission in less than a couple minutes, meaning they dropped from 6% to 4%, meaning they dropped it 33%, like, how confident are you that they're going to stand up for you and fight tooth and nail to get every single dollar out of the property if they just drop their commission by their price by 33%?
I mean, you got a good point there. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, like, is that the type of agent that you want working for you?
No, I mean, I want an aggressive agent that can negotiate, right? So.
Okay. So can I make a recommendation to you?
Sure.
I'm ready to go to work for you, John. I believe in your property. I think you've got a great home. I know I can do a good job for you, and I know that I can get it sold. And I know that obviously, like, working with me, you're going to get the best results. So let's do this. Let's leave it at the 5%. And if for whatever reason you're not happy with the results that I get for you, we can come back and renegotiate this in the future. How does that sound?
Fair enough.
Sounds good. All right.
Boom.
A good one.
Right. And it's not those exact words, but it's somewhere along those lines.
It's the same thing. I mean, how strong could they possibly be defending you and the price that we set for your home? You know, listen, I have that courage. You feel I can sell your home. Let's go ahead and sign the contract. So
sign the contract,
Jose, do you use that?
I used to, and I should probably go back to some of the scripts that I used when I was like starting off, you know, because I think that they've somewhat evolved, but I think some of them would be good if I actually went back to them, to be quite honest. I think I was actually a little bit more aggressive when I was starting off, to be honest. And I think Jaime, my brother-in-law, had mentioned this to me. He's like, hey, Jose, like, fucking, like, I felt like you were more aggressive, you know?
You're way more chill now, but like, you've already built up the reputation. The commission objection doesn't come up as much, I bet, right?
Not as much. And you're right. I have built a pretty good reputation. And then I'd probably say like 50% of our business is referrals still, you know? So it's kind of like, So. Yeah.
The Brandon.
Can I make a quick suggestion here?
Go ahead,
Yes,
Chris.
sir.
So, I know we've all had these conversations anyway, but it feels like it's more prevalent now. And in this becomes sort of the assumption that you guys are just splitting the commission, right? Like, so you say 5 and now it's 2.5, 2.5. And I think often that becomes a play because I think I try to tie it down with the information given. You want to sell for say 750 and that seems totally reasonable given the market. But then the assumption that I'm always giving 2.5 to the other side, I think that there's something there to kind of touch on. I'd love to hear your feedback, whether or not we give them, a full exact half of whatever we're charging.
Yeah. And I think you can break it down. So if they say like, oh, like the other agent is charging me 4%. Okay. You mind me asking how much they're offering to the other agent? Oh, they're offering 2%. And then you have to make a decision what you're okay offering to the other agent. In our market, anywhere from 2 to 2.5 is not going to have an effect on the price. So I'd rather just say, I'd rather not fight them on the 2% to the other agent, and then bring up the listing side of the commission. Yeah, okay. Like I'm okay with offering 2%. I don't believe it'll have a significant difference on the marketing of the property. Would you be okay with this on the listing side?
Thank you.
And then it totals up to X amount of dollars, basically. And then it's just knowing what's going to affect the price and what's not. So if you know that in your market you can get away with that, or it won't have a significant impact, and you can bring up the listing side of the percentage, then I would be good with that.
I'm starting to see 1%. Have you studied at all in this market to see if those properties are selling?
I have not, to be honest, but I heard about another agent. Like I recommended a referral to an agent like in LA, and he's like, look, the seller beat me up and like I was only able to take it 3% on the listing side and nothing on the buyer side. And I was like, what the hell? I know I wouldn't do that. Like I would offer, like even if I took it at a lower percentage, I would still offer to the other agent.
Yeah, exactly. Just take it at 1% and offer out too. If you want to go that low, depending.
If you wanted, yeah. I know I wouldn't, just because I believe it's going to be really hard for him to sell that listing if he's the only person like enticed to do it,
No, I'm saying on the listing side.
Yeah, exactly.
Take 1%.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I'm going to take a reduced commission, I'm still going to offer out to the buyer's agent. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it could still be 10 grand,
Yeah, depending on the price.
I wouldn't go that route. I wouldn't try to go that route, but yeah.
Yeah. Good. What else, guys?
Right. Any other objection handlers that you guys like to share for commissions? Because this might come up a lot going forward.
I believe, John, that it's easier to negotiate commissions when you have something that they want. So I think part of negotiating commissions is not just like an objection handler. It's being a good presenter overall and being very good at presenting how your services solve their problems. Meaning that if you're not good at presenting how your services solve their problem, it's going to be increasingly more difficult for you to negotiate good commissions because you're just a commodity. But if you're the solution to their problems, it'll be a lot easier because they want something that you have to offer. So the reason for you, John, you were kind of like indifferent about my services. You're like, yeah, like there's another guy with great reviews in our market, which is rare, just so you know. Like usually I'm the guy with the most reviews, with the most listings sold, but it's easier to negotiate if you have something that they want. So it's getting really good at finding out what their problems are and how you can solve those problems. The answer at the end of that question should be, if you guys were charging the same thing, I would pick you, and here's the reason why. That means that you've done a really good job in demonstrating how you can solve their problems. If the answer is no, I would just work with this other person, or I'm kind of indifferent, that's not the position that you want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the way we pre-qualify, the pre-listing package and all the steps that we take beforehand to see them in person, they've already seen the value and they know what they want from you, Jose. And that's why the commission objection doesn't come up as much for you, because you've shown us so much of value. You have content, you have YouTube, you have all these reels giving value, and your pre-listing package is probably really beefed up. They know that you do staging. They know you do virtual staging, like with drones or whatever. And the other agent haven't shown them anything. So it's easier for you. And I think the pre-qualification is key in this to reduce their commission objection.
Well, even this, I'll give you an example. Like I have an agent at EXP, and he was telling me how he got beat out at a listing appointment. And I basically said, okay, like he wanted to role play something else. And I was like, look, instead of role playing that, let's focus on the listing presentation. Go over the listing presentation, how you present it to the client. And then he starts going like, hey, thank you so much for having me over. Like I wrote down 3 real important questions. Number 1, do you absolutely have to sell your home? Number 2, do you want to price it to sell? And number 3, do you want me to list the home for you? And then he went over like, at the end of our meeting, 1 of 3 things will happen, and then blah, blah, blah. And then let's review the thing. And I asked him a question. I said, okay, like at the very beginning of the presentation, as soon as you got done with, I wrote down 3 real important questions. Did they cross their arms at all? And he's like, yeah, they did. I'm like, okay. I'm like, try this approach. So, and this is sometimes how I start off listing presentations. Instead of, I wrote down 3 real important questions for you, I'll start off like, look, Jose, my intention here today is to make your job as a seller as easy as possible. My intention in being here today is really to help you maximize the dollar value of your property and to make this as easy of a transaction as possible. In other words, my goal is to take as much off your plate and put it on our plate. So my question to you is, John, what do you think you're going to need the most help with, or what's the most important thing in the sale of this property?
Price.
Okay, so price is the most important thing. Got it. And then how do you think you're going to go about like achieving the highest price?
I mean, I think the marketing and how many open houses you do have something to do with it. And, your marketing looks pretty good. So I think that would help.
Okay, so I agree with you 100%. I think that the marketing is probably the most important thing that's going to help you get as much money as possible on the property. So I have a couple of ideas, John, as it relates to marketing that I believe are going to be helpful to you. Now, before I get into that, let me ask you this, like, what are you planning on doing with some of the personal items that you have on the house? Like, are you going to be selling any of them? Are you going to be donating any of them? What are you going to be doing there?
Yeah, if you could help me put it on Facebook Marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about are you planning on doing any work to the property? Or are you looking to sell it in as is condition?
I mean, what do you think? What do you think I should do?
I think it's pretty much ready to go, in my opinion. I think the most important thing is just going to be preparing the property for sale. And that's why I asked you like what you would need. So you're going to be selling some of the items basically.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
a little bit if you can.
Okay. And then will you need any help boxing up any items or anything like that?
Yes.
You will. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a couple services, John, that I think are going to be helpful for you. And then I'm going to go into a couple services that I think are going to be helpful for them. So in some cases, I start off my listing presentation just like, hey, John, here's a couple things that I think are going to be helpful for you as you make this sale happen. And I'm basically like, if I already know in the pre-qual what services would be helpful to them, I would just go right into the services. and then I can transition into the CMA portion of it. So
Yeah.
I find that this approach, a lot of times, like at the very beginning of the presentation, you have a window of opportunity where in the first 2 to 3 minutes, they're going to decide whether or not like you could be a good fit for them or not a good fit for them. And I think that if you come from a place of like, how can I help you? It basically makes the rest of the presentation a lot easier, and it makes it so that it increases the chances of them wanting the services that you have to offer at the end of it.
100%. Yeah.
I'm not going over the plan of action. I'm just picking out a couple of things that are going to be helpful. So like, for example, if it was a tenant occupied property, I may go over a couple of examples of virtual staging, or I may go over like the Matterport 3D tour. Now, what's happening? Potentially, they are starting to want the services that I have to offer, which means the negotiation of the commission would likely be easier for me because I have something that they want.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you have something that they want. Yeah.
That's been most of my presentations lately. It's just we're just talking consulting. Like, this last one, he had a pool issue, and so but we also happen to know some of the same people, and it's like a $3 million listing would be my biggest sale. Just trying to find out why he's selling, and we connected, but then we just started talking about life and stuff. The last couple appointments I've gone on, we just started talking life, and they ended up hiring me. So I haven't even presented in a majority of my listing appointments that I've gotten.
Yep.
But I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is just like, okay, like people have problems. What solutions do you have to those problems? Meaning, how can you solve them? So if it's a tenant occupied property, the Matterport, the 3D tour, or the virtual staging. If they've got an estate, like, okay, like, are they looking to sell it as is, or are they looking to fix it up? What are they looking to do? And how can your services help them? And then right after that, like my experience is like, okay, they want what I have to offer, and then I'll just jump right into the CMA. Great. What I've done in preparation for our meeting is I prepared what I call a comparative market analysis. In other words, it's just a fancy word and then blah, and then it just turns right into the listing presentation. But that was the advice that I gave that agent specifically. I'm like, look, we got to switch the approach at the very beginning, because I think that if you're just like saying it this way or that way, you're sounding like everybody else, and it's more about you versus them. And you're not solving any of their problems, which is going to make it so that like they may not want even the services that you have to offer.
Yeah, you're not coming from any value with that approach.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's why it's like, I don't know. They're writing out this presentation, and how does that solve their problems at the end of the day? You're right.
Yep. Agree. 100%. Anybody have any questions about that? Anybody want to role play something else?
Matt?
I have a scenario.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so I went door knocking, and met this couple. The wife is unhappy with the location, and they want to move because of traffic. We went twice, and the second time we went, we were able to say, hey, can we get you pre-approved, get you connected with our lender? And they said, yeah. Unfortunately, I guess they ghosted the lender, and we haven't been able to really reach out to them. I guess my question would be, where do we go on next from there?
Yeah. Are you like only doing it like door to door, or do you have a phone number for them?
We have their phone number. It's just the way we met them was through door knocking.
Got it. Okay. So and let me ask you this, like, how many pieces of the puzzle do you have in the scripts? Meaning, like, do you know what interest rate they have?
Yeah, it's pretty low. Yeah, they bought it a while ago. I think they pay like about $1,000
a month right now.
Yeah.
Got it. And their only thing is they're looking to get from a non-busy street to a busy street.
No, so their back is against a road, and I guess the wife just
Oh,
doesn't like the cars that drive by. I guess it's like she's getting annoyed by it.
yeah. And when you asked them what their time frame was for wanting to do something, what did they say?
Um, it was more so kind of like, well, because they wanted to rent the property out, and they're like, well, we want to see what we can get, what makes more sense, and that's kind of why we were like, okay, well, let's get a lender to see what makes sense to sell it or to rent it out, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where we got stuck.
Well, I think too, like, and here's something that I'll do, Tilson, is I will run numbers for them before I even send them to the lender to see if they're a viable option. So I think that a lot of times when we're prospecting, like we send people that are shit to lenders and then they'll ghost the lender and then the lender will look at your leads and be like, fuck, this guy sends me nothing but shit. Everybody ghosts me. So like what I would do, like let's say I was door knocking them, they're like, well, I want to see if it makes sense for me to sell the property. Like I will collect different pieces of the puzzle. So one of the pieces I would be like, okay, like so you're considering potentially renting out the property, right? Or you're considering selling and you're trying to find out like which one makes the most sense for you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you mind me asking like what price range would you want to purchase in if you did move from this one to the next one?
Okay. Yeah, that's something we didn't ask.
Okay, but like role play with me. So
Okay.
what price range would you want to be in?
Nothing more than 800,000.
Okay, got it. And then how much do you think that this property is worth right here? Or let me ask it this way. How much equity do you believe that you have in this property?
About like $400,000.
About 400,000. And let me ask you
Yeah.
this. Like if it was up to you, would you prefer to sell it or would you prefer to keep it?
Well, I prefer to rent it out so that way the new mortgage, I don't have to pay so much. I only pay 1,000 here, so
The
I wouldn't want to have
difference.
to. Yeah,
How
just
much
whatever
do you
can be the
think
difference.
you can rent out the property for?
Well, I looked it up online, and there's a property down the street that's renting, and it's about the same, renting for about 4,200.
Okay. So in that scenario, you'd probably net like about $3,200. Would you get a property manager or would you just manage it yourself?
I guess we haven't even thought about it that far yet.
Okay. So let's say $3,000 that you would keep, right? And then you said you want to purchase at 800,000. How much would you want to put down on that $800,000 property?
20%.
Okay. And you have the 20% already without selling this property?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me run some rough numbers for you and tell you what your mortgage payment would be. And this is just an estimate, like it's not exact, but let me run some rough numbers for you. So like at 800,000 with 20% down, that's $160,000. Your payment would be about 5,539, which means that if you're netting $3,000 on the other one, you would be coming in at a pocket about 2,239. So basically, instead of paying 1,000, you would be paying $2,239, and you would be able to keep the other property as a rental.
Okay.
Is that something that would work for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it would. Of
Okay. Can I make a recommendation?
course.
Great. So the next step in the home buying process is for you to meet with a loan officer. Now, what the loan officer is going to do is they're actually going to give you exact numbers as to what your payment's going to be. They're going to tell you if you qualify, and if you don't qualify, what you have to do to qualify. Do you already have a lender that you work with, or would you like for me to recommend somebody to you?
Yeah, you can definitely recommend somebody to me.
Okay. Now, before I get you over to the lender is going to ask me a few questions. I'm going to ask them to you right now. Okay. So who would be on the loan? Is it just you? Is it you and a wife? Or who would be on the loan with you?
It would be me and my wife.
Okay. So you and your wife. Okay. Got it. Okay. And then it doesn't have to be exact, but do you mind me asking, like, roughly, what do the credit scores look like for you and your wife?
We're above 720.
Above 720 each one. Perfect.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then how long have each one of you been at your current employment?
We've been there for 10 years plus.
10 years. Okay. So 10 years plus. Got it. So 10 years plus at the current employment. Okay. And then you mind me asking, like, it doesn't have to be exact, but combined income between you and your wife, what's the gross monthly amount roughly?
Gross monthly amount, we make about 8,000 a month.
$8,000 a month, basically. Together or individually?
Together.
Okay, so 8,000 times 12, that comes out to about $96,000 a year. Okay, and then on that $96,000, do you guys have any debt? Like, do you guys have like any debt, like meaning like car debt, credit card debt, or anything that has a monthly payment, like student debt, anything like that?
Just the mortgage and some credit cards, but nothing major, nothing major at all.
Got it. Okay. So basically you don't have like 10 cars or anything like that, basically, in other words.
No, both of our cars are paid off for. We got them a long time.
Got it. Okay. And then you don't have like a bankruptcy or a short sale on your record or anything like that in the last 3 years. At least that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, no, nothing like that.
Fantastic. Okay. So based on what you've told me, Tilson, you're actually a very good candidate for making this move. And if you're comfortable with the monthly payment, I would recommend you speak with a mortgage professional, because based on what you've told me, it's very likely. I mean, your new payment's only going to be $2,000, and you're making $8,000 a month. That's almost 3 to 4 times what the difference is going to be. And they're going to be using the rental to help you qualify basically for the next property. So I do believe that you're a good candidate for purchasing a home. Do you have any other questions for me, or is there anything else I could help you out with?
No, I think that was perfect.
Okay. Now, at that point, you got 2 options. Instead of recommending them to the lender, you could be like, great, the next step is going to be for us to sit down and help you formulate a game plan to help you get this property on the marketplace and help you buy the next property, or you can recommend them to a lender, basically. Another question that I would probably ask, like, if you did make this move happen, like, what would be an ideal time frame for you to make this move happen? And like, is it a month? Is it a year? What's ideal for you?
Probably, as soon as possible.
Got it. Okay, so you would want to make this happen as soon as possible. Great. And then at that point, you could either recommend it to a lender, but now you know whether it's a good lead or not a good lead. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
Like,
the providing the paperwork, or not paperwork, but the numbers is something that we didn't really think about,
Well, let me ask you this. Like, at this point, do you know if you actually have a good lead or not a good lead? Before my conversation with you, like, meaning based on the information that you've collected, do you know if you have a good lead or a bad lead?
I wanted to say I thought we did, but after this conversation, I don't know anymore, to be honest.
I don't think you have enough information to know whether you have a good lead. I'll give you an example. I'm talking to a lead. The lead basically tells me, like, I want to sell, very similar. I hate this or I hate that about the property. Like, great. Do you want to sell or do you want to keep it? He goes, well, I'd rather keep it. I'm like, how much would you want to put down in the next property? Let's say 20% down. I'm like, hey, your new payment's going to be $8,000 based on that. Are you okay with that? He goes, no, I would never do that. Okay. Is that a good lead or a bad lead now?
That's a bad lead.
Okay. And then I'll give you another example. I have a guy, same thing. I told him, like, hey, this is what your new situation would look like. Is that a good lead or and he goes, yeah, I would be okay with that. Very similar to you. It's a good lead. Same thing with a buyer. Like, let's say you're working with a buyer. It's like, oh yeah, I want to buy a property. Great. Let me get you over to lender. What I usually recommend before getting people over to lenders is to do a soft prequal on them, just like I did right now. Who's going to be on the loan? What credit scores do you guys have? How much income do you guys make? What other debts do you have? And then based on that, you'll know whether you have a good lead or a bad lead. Like, I had a guy called me up. It was so funny. Not so funny. He goes, hey, Jose Luis, like, I want to buy a home. I want to get into this real estate game. I'm like, how much money do you make? He goes, I'm like, what's your credit? He's like, oh, it's a little bit low. It's like in the 500s. I'm like, okay. Negative number one. I'm like, how much money do you and your wife make? And or who's going to be on the loan? Me and my wife. I'm like, how much money do you guys make? He's like, 40,000. I'm like, individually? He goes, no, together. I'm like, hey, just to be fully transparent, brother, I love you. I want to help you. You're going to need a cosigner and maybe even 2 cosigners to help you buy a property. Like most people would have been like, oh my God, that's great news. You want to buy a home? Let me get you over to the lender. The lender fucking calls him 10 times. He's able to get a hold of him and finds out that he makes 40,000 a year. He's like, fuck, Tilson sends me shit leads every single time, you know, instead of like, hey, like go meet with the lender. Now I know whether this is a valid lead and whether I need to follow up with them or not. Now I know like, hey, look, this is a very cold lead, very unlikely to do something because of this, this, and this. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it makes sense. It shows the importance of actually learning how to pre-qualify somebody.
Well, learning, and this is kind of what I found, like the seller side has maybe like a 5 or 6 different points that every conversation has, and the buyer side has very similar points. Whenever they're buying and selling, it makes it a little bit more complex, but you got double the different conversations. So one of them on the seller side is, okay, what price do you want? How much equity do you believe? Or, okay, where do you want to move to? What's your time frame? What price do you want for the property? How much do you owe on the home? What's due on the home? Who are the decision makers? Would you consider any creative financing on it? Those are some of the points. On the buyer side, it's okay, what does your ideal property look like? What do you want your monthly payment to be? Even the soft prequal, that's on the buyer side as well too, you know? And the better you are at understanding these pieces and combining them together, the better of a picture you can have, whether it's a good lead or a bad lead. You know, if that guy would have said, yeah, 2,500 is doable, I have 20% down, it's like, great, this is a great lead. I'm not going to stop following up on this guy, you know, especially if he said, hey, look, 2,500 is a comfortable payment. You know, this is somebody that's a very good lead. What may be required as well, too, is sometimes like with these types of buyers, it requires that they get a little bit excited about the marketplace. Meaning like in some cases, I've had these type of clients that are like kind of, hey, we're going to do something. It's required if they're a good candidate like this one, it's required that maybe you show them a couple properties to get them excited, you know? Hey, look, this is what you can get for 800,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Yeah.
Cool.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
I had a question in regards to what you were saying, because I had this scenario before where the seller was like, hey, what if I can keep this as a rental and buy another home, right? And I spoke to a couple lenders. They're like, and I kind of understood this too, was like, you don't have a set lease yet. Can you use the potential, in this case was what, 4,200 rent as part of the income to qualify for the next purchase?
I think it depends on the lender. I've seen it both ways. So I've seen it where some lenders don't need a lease, and I've seen it where some lenders need a lease. But a lease is very easy to get, like meaning like let's say that they say, hey, you're pre-approved contingent upon you getting a lease prior to the funding. Would that be pretty easy to get prior to funding?
Yeah.
Like it's not something that you have to have a lease prior to a pre-approval letter, you know, because they can make the pre-approval letter contingent upon you getting a lease. I think more important than having a lease or not is having the right numbers. Meaning like more important than whether you have a lease or not is like you can assume certain things. Like if you assume a lease that's $6,000 and market rent's only $4,000, that's going to lead to a problem. If you assume a lease that's $4,000 and market rent's $4,000, then that's going to be easy peasy because you're assuming the right things. So more important than having a lease or not is assuming the right information.
Got it.
But do you guys see how like you can actually like instead of sending everybody to a lender, like I have a mortgage calculator. I'm not giving them exact numbers. I'm disclosing to them I am not a lender. I'm not giving you exact numbers, but this is just to kind of give us a rough ballpark. I'm not giving you like a percentage of what the lender is going to charge you. That's based on the lender. but here's roughly what the percentages are. In order to get accurate information, you need to move to the lender. But what does it do? It helps you qualify the lead to see if this is a valid person or not. You know, the other guy, I'm like, hey, this is what your payment would be. I had a guy telling me he wanted to move to Arizona. And I start collecting pieces of the puzzle. I'm like, how much do you own your property? I'm like, how much would you put down on the next property? Like, I put down everything. What ended up coming to the surface is that he wanted to move to Arizona to basically lower his monthly expenses. But because he had a 2% rate here and a 7% interest rate over there, even if he purchased in Arizona for $200,000 less, his payment was only like $200 off. When I told him that, he's like, when I told him that, he's like, dude, it doesn't make sense for me to move to Arizona. I'm like, you're right. It doesn't. I'm like, can I make a recommendation? I'm like, for $200, why are you going to move to Arizona? Like, stay here. I'm like, instead, build an ADU. Now, he may eventually still sell. He may say, forget Arizona. Let me move to New Mexico with house prices of 400,000. But at least running these different scenarios allows me to be able to get a better picture of what they're thinking of, instead of being like, oh, let me get them over to the lender and then the lender telling them the same information. Does that make sense? So us as agents, we have to do a better job having deeper, meaningful conversations where we really understand all of the pieces of the puzzle to determine whether we have a good lead or not a good lead. And that's our skill. That's what we get paid for. We get paid for like sorting through leads and be like, okay, this is a person that I want to focus my time, energy, and resources on. This is not a person that I want to focus my time, energy, and resources in.
You changed that guy's life. Who do you think he's going to call?
Well, I just gave him what he was looking for, bro. He just wanted to know if it made sense or not. And I'm like, okay, well, let's run some numbers together. And it's funny because my lead manager, the person who helps me follow up on people, is like, oh my God, I got a hot lead for you. I'm like, all right. And then I basically go back to her. I'm like, look, this is why it wasn't a hot lead. I'm like, we didn't understand this piece of the puzzle and that piece of the puzzle. I'm like, you have to learn roughly how to run some mortgage numbers just so that you can determine whether it's a good lead or not, you know, especially if they're selling and buying. Now, if interest rates were the same, 2% and 2%, dude, it'd be an easy peasy move to Arizona. Dude, you're going to save $1,000 a month, you know, because you're buying a home that's $200,000 less.
Ernie's got a question.
Who?
I just wanted to, this is assuming that you do these soft prequals even before you bring them in for a buyer's or seller's consultation, correct?
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right.
I like meeting with people in person that are qualified and willing to do something. Now, I know different approaches. I know agents that will have a buyer's consultation with somebody before them being pre-approved. I don't like that approach. The only, because you could meet with 10 people and only one of them be pre-approved. The only way I would do that is if I run like a soft prequel and everything checks out. Like, meaning like they're like a rock solid and I feel like I need to get them excited about the home buying process, or maybe like that's what they're looking for, like a face-to-face meeting. But I would still do that soft prequel to make sure that I have a good candidate. So if they tell me, hey, my credit score is 500 or I make $40,000 a year, I'm not sitting down with them for a buyer's consultation until they can show me some sort of initiative that they can do whatever needs to be done to be able to get pre-approved, basically. Now, if the person sounds like a slam dunk, yeah, I'll sit down with you, you know, for a buyer's consultation, even without meeting with the lender, but because everything checks out, basically.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of sending some people to lenders that didn't work out. So I
100%.
got to do a better job there.
Yeah, and and just so you know, like a majority of our agents for a long time were guilty of that. And what I realized, I'm just like, dude, like we are bombarding, and then we start blaming the lender, like, oh, you're not following up on my leads, and then you try another lender who the other lender's like, oh, I'm gonna follow up on your leads, and then you send them like 10 leads, and then they start getting burned out, you know, because everybody you're sending them doesn't work out.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Jose, This is Chris. On that related topic, my issue is I don't know when. Sometimes I feel comfortable in the conversations, but sometimes I'm just not sure if it's too early in building the report to start getting into the nitty gritty of the finances and their qualifications and their debt, all that personal stuff. And maybe that's just the way that I grew up, and so I feel like it's personal. So I typically I kind of qualify them a little bit, but I don't get into that nitty gritty prior to seeing a property or prior to getting them to a lender. How do you bridge that gap?
I think it's the way that you ask things, bro. Meaning like there's a way that I can ask things without sounding intrusive. Like meaning,
Yeah, like
hey Chris, how much money? Hey Chris, how much money do you make? And it's like, fuck, like, dude, at least kiss me before we go on a date, you know, or at least date me before you try to kiss me, you know. So there's ways to soften up the approach. Hey Chris, I hope this is not too personal, you know. And then Vicente said it's a feeling as well too. And he's right. It is a feeling, but I think that there's a way to soften things up as well. Meaning like, hey, Chris, like in order for me to be able to help you, it does require that I ask you a couple questions about the finances. It's not because I want to dig super deep in your finances or not because I want to be nosy. It's more or less for me to be able to guide you in the right direction and make this home buying experience a little bit more of a pleasant experience. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions that may be a little bit more on the personal side, just so that I can be able to help guide you and help make you a homeowner?
Okay. And then
I start off with some of the softer questions. Notice how I don't get right into the money right away. I'll start off with, hey, who's going to be on the loan? Hey, roughly, not exactly, what type of credit scores do you have? Then I'm like, okay, great. Roughly, approximately, how much money do you guys make? But notice how I didn't start off with how much money do you make right away? Because that's a little bit like more deep. Notice how I didn't start off with how much money do you have in your bank account? Because that's a little bit deeper. Does that make sense? And then instead of saying how much money do you have in your bank account, I may ask you like, how much money would you want to put down on the purchase of your property? Does that make sense? Like, it's not like how much money do you have in your bank, Chris? It's the same answer. You're getting the same exact answer. You're just asking it a different way.
Yeah. So if they just want to, you know, if they were to respond like, oh no, I got the money, I'm good, I know I'm qualified, we bought several homes, or if they say, yeah, I just want to see this house, you know, do I really need to give you all that information just to see this house?
Yeah. So in some cases, I may say like, because most sellers, if you ask most sellers what they would most sellers want non-pre-approved buyers walking through their home or pre-approved buyers walking through their home?
Pre-approved buyer.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that most sellers would want pre-approved buyers? So in some cases, like, and what you're talking about is like an up call. It's kind of like almost like a sign call. Like, hey, I'm calling about your property on 123 Banana Street. I just talked about this with another agent. I may say something like, okay, great. I'm happy to show you the property. What time would you like to see the property? Well, I'd like to see the property at 5 p.m. today. Okay, great. Before I show you the property, I do have a couple of really quick questions I need to ask you. I want to make sure that obviously we're fully prepared and we could really be a best service to you. Is it okay if I ask them now? Great. And then you start doing a prequel. So like a prequel would be like, okay, like let's say that you like this home when you see it. Are you prepared to make an offer on the property if you like the property? Yes, I'm prepared to make an offer. Great. You're not working with a real estate agent at the present moment, correct? No, I'm not. Okay. And then are you already pre-approved or are you going to be purchasing the property in cash? Well, I'm going to be, I'm pre-approved already. Or I'm not pre-approved, but I qualify for the property. So in this situation, the seller has requested that all buyers be 100% pre-approved prior to seeing the property. Do you already have a lender that you work with, or would you like for me to recommend somebody to you? Or if they're like, no, you could do a soft pre-approval. Okay, great. Let me see if I can get an exemption for you I'm going to reach out to the seller to see if I can get an exemption on the pre-approval. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about like your finances to see if I can get an exemption for you? Like, okay, what credit score do you have? What this, what that, basically. And then like, I'll give you an example, like, and this is from Vicente back in the day. Like Vicente back in the day when I was less busy. So like pre-qualifications and soft prequals has to do when you get more, when you need to get more efficient with your time. Like, meaning if you don't have very much business, like, dude, showing a property to somebody is better than not showing a property because something good would come out of it. And that's what Vicente taught me at the very beginning. So there was times where I would want to pre-qualify the appointments and I would lose the appointments because I'd be overqualifying them at the very beginning. Like at the very beginning, when I didn't have much business, it's kind of like, hey, like if they're like, hey, I'm qualified, you want to show them the property, go for it, you know? But as you want to get more efficient with your time, it becomes more important to basically qualify the leads. That way you're spending time on all the right people, basically. So in some cases, like Vicente at the very beginning, I'd be in a slump. Be like, look, dude, you're in a slump. Go show a couple properties. Doesn't matter if they're pre-qualified or not. Go build some rapport and freaking something good will come out of it. And sure enough, like maybe they didn't buy but they recommended me to somebody that was interested in buying, or maybe they bought like a year later or something like that. But now as my time becomes more valuable, or if you want your time to be more valuable, meaning if you're looking to be like more efficient, you want your time to be more valuable, you're going to need to either pre-qualify before you show the property or pre-qualify them financially. So on the listing side, there's like one pre-qual script. On the buyer side, there could be a pre-qual script before you show a property for the first time. There's a pre-qual script if they're not qualified already. There's a pre-qual script that you would want to ask before you send them to a lender. Those are like the different things that you'd want to pre-qual for, basically.
Got it.
But it has to do with a lot of how you ask the questions, bro. It has to do with being okay with asking personal questions without it sounding intrusive. So I'll give you an example. On the Mike Ferry seller side, there's a question that says, how much do you owe on the property? I don't ask that question that way. I say, hey, in order for me to prepare a seller net sheet for you, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare a seller net sheet for you. This is going to let you know net bottom line, what you can expect to receive after any escrow costs, any title fees, and any realtor commissions. Is there still a balance owed on this property, or is this property paid off free and clear? And a lot of times what they'll tell me is, oh, I owe like $400,000. When I used to ask, how much do you owe on the property? I would get responses like, why do you want to know that? Like, why does that matter? Like, because they think that you're going to use that against them. So the way you ask questions would dictate the responses that you get. So asking questions in a way where they don't sound intrusive will actually help you have deeper, meaningful conversations and have you determine whether this is actually a good person that you want to be working with, or it's not a good person that you want to be working with. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, guys?
Is Aaron still in DR or what's going on?
Yeah, he is. I think he's probably still out there. He was out there. I think he's going to be out there for he might be out there for another week or like another 7 to 10 days.
Oh, and then coming to Vancouver. Okay, cool.
That's the benefit of rev share, bro. You got that
Damn.
rev share
Just on vacation?
Let's go.
You got that rev share money now, huh? You know?
We need to keep his ass in line.
That's funny. No, I think it's actually good for him. He's going to come back like with a different frame of thought. And I think it's important for all of us to realize like, hey, look, all of this is possible for us if we follow the game plan, you know?
Yeah. And guys, I promise you, Jose doesn't need to show up on this call either. His rev share is handsome right now also. And he's got some rental income, but we're getting back and
not as big as yours though. Tell me what your rev share is, man. It inspires me whenever you tell me.
Highest this year is 89,000
a month. In a month, guys.
It's crazy.
But
hey, what's the lowest this year?
The lowest was 40 grand.
40, so somewhere between 40 to 80 grand, basically.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
It's
congratulations
possible.
on that.
But here's the thing, like the reason why I'm still here is because I want everybody to have what we have, and I want to give back. I could be
Dude, love you, bro. Love you, dude. Seriously,
Yeah.
both of you guys. Like, it's crazy. Appreciate you guys big time.
I'm never gonna.
Very
No way. So, guys, let's get back here next week and role play. Let's have some fun. Make it a great week, guys. We'll see y'all next week. All right.
Later, guys. Bye.